Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2016 Chevy Silverado 1500, we're going to be showing you how to install the Airlift wireless Bluetooth air compressor system. But before we do that, why don't we take a minute, check this out, and make sure it's going to be right for you. An air compressor system like this one here is going to be a great addition whenever you install airbags on your truck. And that's because it's going to make not only maintenance, but adjustability much easier and save you a lot of time. Because without the compressor, you're always going to have to check the pressure. If you do need to make adjustments, you have to, bring out the hose from the compressor in the garage or at the gas station or whatever and fill everything up manually. So this just streamlines that process and makes it a lot easier. But kind of give an example how this works. We got a little bit of weight in the bed of the truck, enough to get it to squat a little bit. As opposed to having to do everything manually, can take our mobile device here and turn the compressor on from here if you wanted to. Kind of eyeball everything, set it until we get the truck level and where we want it to tow. This compressor kit is going to give you T's, which will tee into your existing airlines from your airbags. And with a setup like that, you are still able to actually maintain those manual inflation valves though. So at least you got a backup if need be. The compressor is good for up to 100 PSI. And one of the things I like about it, it's pretty quick actually and relatively quiet for compressor system. So right now I'm at 5 PSI. I'm gonna ramp it up to 15 and it doesn't take very long to fill our bags. There's a lot of compressor systems out on the market, and for these late model trucks, I always recommend the wireless ones, whether it be this Bluetooth one or the one that has the remote also. And I say it because there's just not a ton of space to put old school gauges anymore, and your manual valves inside of the dash here. There's a lot of stuff going on. Everything's pretty tight. With those manual ones, you got to run a bunch of extra airlines in here, and things get crowded pretty quick. So, having the wireless one, you're not going to have to drill into your dash or mount up a big gauge and take up a bunch of space. This is going to be a dual path compressor, meaning you can adjust pressure in each bag individually. So let's say, just to give you an example, you want the left side to have 10 pounds air in it. It'll drop that down, and you want the right side to have 20. If you have an off-center load, it'll ramp up and do that. There's also presets. So trying to secure the connection here. There's also presets, so you can customize those. So let's say, for example, if one trailer pulls good with 20 pounds in it, you can set it that. Other trailer pulls good with 50, you can do that. Then a lot of times, since a lot of airbags are going to require at least 5 PSI in them at all times, usually that preset one's a good call to leave at 5. That way when you turn the key in the truck, it keeps it at that if it loses air overnight or whatever the case may be. Now, as far as the connectivity goes, today it's working pretty good, but from time to time, like you just saw there, I'll make an adjustment and it might get halfway through, stop for a couple seconds and secure the connection and then work again. Maybe it's just my phone or just the day. Kind of just depends. Everyone's scenario is going to be a little different. I have heard of people saying that same thing, but aside from that, once you're paired up, it seems to work pretty good. If you don't want to deal with this, you can always opt to add a remote later, or you can just get the kit that comes included with the remote. And with those, I haven't had any issues at all. They always connect. It's kind of dedicated. That remote is dedicated to the system. And with those kits as well, you can still have the Bluetooth feature for your mobile device. So essentially you got 2 ways of being able to control it with that particular kit. One of the big questions a lot of people ask in regards to using an air compressor is if it's going to work with different brands of airbags. And with this one, the answer is yes. It does not matter what brand of airbag you have. The compressor don't care. It's going to pump that bag up full of air. Now in our case today, we have Airlift bags works perfect, but even if you have Firestone bags or a different brand, I've done it plenty of times in the past, everything ends up working out just fine. One of the best parts about this system, at least in my opinion, is how everything is integrated in one big piece. So you got your manifold, the actual compressor. They give you this really nice bracket. They do as much of the work as they can for you, essentially. So it mounts up real easy. You know, the wiring harness is awesome. It's all taped up already, and it's really well done. I'm a big fan of these kits. We do a ton of them here, and definitely one of the favorites for sure, which kind of brings you to my next point. Because of that, it makes installation pretty straightforward, especially when it comes to compressor systems. Mount this up, you run your lines, hook up your electrical. It's not, you know, super involved. It is a little time consuming, but definitely worth it. And if you plan on installing this yourself, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be over here on the passenger side of our truck, and our compressor system will get mounted up in this area here just in front of our bed and underneath our rear door. But before we actually mount everything up, it's easier to kind of prep a few things here. So first things first, we're going to take our air filter, and they give you this little fitting. That'll just thread on there, and this is plastic, so you really don't need to crank down on it or anything. Just do it by hand. And they give you a few foot of this softer line. We'll just push one end onto the barb fitting there, and then if we move to the top of our compressor, there's going to be a fitting on it where we can push it on as well. You're going to have two wires coming off of the bottom of the compressor, and they're going to have these pre-attached terminals on them, and we're not going to use those. So I'm going to cut those off and then strip the insulation back. We'll twist the wire. I'm just going to double the wire over too to make it a little bit thicker. We'll take a butt connector, place it over the bare end, and crimp it down. And this is how we're going to make all of our electrical connections. You know, whether it be a ring terminal or a spade terminal or a butt connector, they're all going to work the same way. So I'll just go ahead and do the same thing for this black wire here. To get this mounted up, they give you this big U-bolt. All right, and that's just going to go around the frame, pretty wide open on the back side on our truck here, but if you happen to have lines or anything on the frame, you know, make sure to avoid those. But then this is essentially, we'll run that U-bolt through there, and on each end of it, you take a flat washer and a nylon lock nut. I'll get both of them started hand tight here. Come back now with a 9/16 socket and snug these down, and when you're tightening down a U-bolt, you want to try to alternate, you know, so bottom and top to kind of draw everything in evenly. We'll come back now with a torque wrench and tighten down the hardware to the amount specified in our instructions. I went ahead and secured our air filter, and this is going to be on the first hat channel towards the very front of the bed. So essentially this is just right behind where our cab ends, and you want to put this in a place where it's away from heat and somewhere up high where it's going to stay dry, and you want the fitting to point downward, so just like how we have it set up. And what you can do is take a 3/8 drill bit, drill a hole in that hat channel, and essentially that filter just pushes right into place. We'll focus on our electrical portion now. And so you have this harness here and the side with the connector that's going to be towards our compressor system. And coming off of the harness, there's just going to be two bare wires, a black one and a red one. And those I connected to the red and black wires coming out of the compressor. So just color for color. And these are heat shrink style butt connectors. All right, so once you have both connections made with these, you can come back with a heat source and seal up the ends. Take our connector in now, and that's going to plug right into the connector on our manifold there. Push it in, lock that down, and what I'll do now, these wires are going to run up towards the front in the engine compartment, so I'll go ahead and get that done and then show you the path that I took to get there. With our wiring, I did opt to cover it all with wire loom just to help it blend in. It looks a little bit better and give it an extra layer of protection. So you can always pick this up here at eTrailer if you want to do this. And when you're routing wires, make sure to do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts. And that's going to hold true for our air lines later on as well. But took the wire, put kind of a dip in it here, and then zip tied it up along through here. And then just ran it along our frame rail. And every now and again, was able to zip tie it where it comes up and over through here and essentially goes up into our engine compartment. Here's where our wiring comes up in the engine compartment. You're gonna have a red and a black wire that'll get hooked up to the battery. There's a pink wire too that'll separate and go towards the driver's side, but we'll deal with that in a minute. That said, the black wire, you can cut that to length, crimp on a ring terminal, remove the 10mm nut or loosen the 10mm nut on the negative battery terminal, put the connector through it and tighten it down. And on our particular truck, a lot of them will probably be set up the same way. The nut doesn't come all the way off, at least easily. So to avoid damaging the threads, if you back it off as much as you can, then take the ring terminal and cut an opening in it like that, you're able to kind of sneak it underneath the head of the nut and tighten it back down. So that's what I did. And our red wire, that's going to be our power wire. So I cut that to length, and that's going to get connected to the included fuse holder. And just use our butt connector there. Make sure the fuse is not installed just yet. We'll do that at the very end once everything is hooked up. And crimped on our ring terminal and did the same exact thing on this side, you know, just to the positive battery post. As far as that pink wire goes, like I said, we run it over to the driver's side. So there's a big piece of wire loom that runs across from the factory. So I just followed that, zip tying it from time to time there. And then once it gets into this area, there's actually a big factory rubber grommet, and you can poke a little hole in it, take your wire and push it through, and that's going to allow it to go inside of the truck. So our pink wire, you know, it came in the cab and I just push it up through this opening, and the side panel here is actually already gone. Some of the other interior panels on this truck are missing too, but with these, they usually just pop right off to give you access to the fuse block, so you can do that. But I connected the pink wire to this included fuse holder, a little smaller one. So I used a butt connector. Then on this end, I just crimped on a spade terminal. And this is going to have to get connected to an ignition source, meaning you don't want it to have power when the key's off, but you want it to have power when you turn the ignition on. And so you can tap into a fuse if you want and test them, figure out what's what. But this big fuse right here, this 50 amp one, on top of it, there's a little cutout there, and there's just a plain post. I checked that with a test light, and that actually is ignition power when we turn the key on. So I'm just going to utilize that. That way we don't have to even deal with tapping it into a fuse that's already onto another circuit. So that's exactly why I just used our spade terminal there. And I'm just going to push this right onto that post there. With the electrical side of things wrapped up, we can get our air lines routed from our compressor back to our airbags. To get your airline sorted, the kit comes with a big bundle of airline tubing, and you can just cut it in half. And then this fitting over here, that's going to be for the right side airbag or the passenger side. And then this one will be for the left or driver side. So just to help keep track of things, I just put a white dot there on the right side one on one of the lines that I cut in half. Every now and again I put some white paint so I know, plug that one into there, and that'll be for the right side bag. When you go to hook up airlines, whether it be into here or into the T-fittings or anything, you want to make sure that you have a good clean straight cut. So you want to use a tool like this, a tubing cutter. You can take the line, put a block wood under it, and use a utility knife and cut it. Just avoid using a regular pair of snips because it'll probably kink it and then leak. So go ahead and clip that. A good clean straight cut, no burrs or anything. So we're in good shape. And the way these plug in, they're just push to connect, quick connect fittings essentially. So you line it up and you'll feel it kind of sink down and lock into place. So got both of them going. And then the lines, how I routed them, I just kind of shot them up through here. Where I have them running like that towards the back of our truck. The lines kind of continue this way, and then once you get to about where, you know, that hat channel that we mounted our air filter on, you can start to kind of angle it towards the driver's side of our truck. Our line's actually routed on top of this big cross member here, so just use some zip ties every now and again. Run it on the top, and then I kind of have it angling like this on top of our fuel tank. And this is where they come out. And I opted to make our connections towards the back of the truck. So essentially I just followed where our other airlines are routed originally in this big bundle of wire. Up through here, where they're all going to come out, kind of right behind our bumper there. The kit's going to give you these T's, and this is how you're going to tap into your existing airbag airlines. So for example here, this line is originally for the left side airbag. So originally, imagine if this T wasn't here, just go straight down to your manual inflation valve. So I cut that line in half, just like we showed you with the manifold. Took the T, push those two ends into it to complete that air pathway. And then on the top of the T, this is where the airline from our compressor goes. So just pushed it into there, and then did that same exact thing for the other airline for the right side or passenger side. We'll get our included fuses installed now, so I'm going to do the one here in the door first. Pop that in, then I'll move under the hood and pop the one in that goes to our battery. When you go to put the power fuse in, a lot of times the compressor will kind of automatically go to its preset, and so when you do this, if you hear the compressor turn on or let air out of your system, it's completely normal, nothing to worry about. Download the free app on your mobile device, pair to the compressor. So you want to do this within 5 minutes of putting the fuse in. If not, take the fuse out for a few seconds, put it back in, that kind of resets everything. Turn your device's Bluetooth on and use the prompts it gives you. It's pretty easy. It just says, you know, pair to this device essentially, and click on that. Give it a minute to do its thing, and you should be able to make your adjustments now. So when I'm doing that, the compressor's turning on, and what I'm going to do here is turn our pressure up to like maybe 40 or 50, kind of run it pretty good. That way we can check for any leaks. To check for leaks, go to any connections that you made, and you can spray them down with soapy water. And then give it a minute to do its thing. And what you're looking for is for bubbles to continuously and rapidly form. If you see that, you know you got a leak. And what you can do, let the air out of the system, pull the line out, recut it again, reinstall it, and check it until you're in good shape. So I checked the ones in the back, our T connectors, those are good. These ones up here, I don't see any bubbles growing, so I think we're in pretty good shape. Now that we verified we don't have any leaks, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Airlift wireless air compressor system on our 2016 Chevrolet Silverado 1500.